Hi, everyone, and welcome to our last guest episode of Season 3 of And So the Story Goes. This episode will continue our discussion of friendship abroad as I talk to Vanya, a student at the University of Rochester, and her friend Orelle, a student at Kenyon College in Ohio. The two met while abroad in Australia. This episode was recorded on Zoom so we could talk about cross school friendships. Enjoy the episode! Vanya and Orelle, welcome to And So the Story Goes, and thank you for being here chatting with me today. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Vanya Dhaminja. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm majoring in psychology and anthropology. And I went to the University of Sydney program with U of R, yes, in Australia.
And my name's Orelle Mignani, she, her, and I go to Kenyon College in Ohio. I'm a psychology major, and I also studied abroad at the University of Sydney.
Well, amazing. So, what made you choose your study abroad program and Sydney as your host destination?
For me, I always wanted to go to Australia. Like I
Mhm.
don't know what it was. And I like to do things different than other people. So a lot of my friends were going to Europe and like doing typical semester um in at a program in Europe, and I wanted to do something different and kind of get out of my comfort zone. So um Australia really appealed to me for many reasons. Like I love nature and the ocean, and I just thought it would be really unique and fun.
Also, for me, like Australia is just so far, so I felt like study abroad would be the perfect time to explore it because
Mhm.
when else, like it would be harder other times to kind of go there. And also gave me the opportunity to see like if I'd want to live there in the future and like work there in the future. And also I love like big cities and also like Orel said, the ocean, like being near beaches.
Mhm.
It was just kind of perfect and warm weather. So yeah, Australia was perfect.
Well, awesome. So, you two are friends that met abroad in Sydney. So, how did you guys meet and how did you become friends, even though you came from different schools, different states, even here in the US?
We met actually through an app that the University of Sydney has that connects students who are all studying abroad. And so, yeah, you just have like, there's hundreds of people every semester from different countries who are on exchange. And so we had connected there. And then it was like a coincidence that we had a class together because we're both psych majors. And we also had like a mutual friend in the beginning who knew both of us and had mentioned the other person. So it just kind of happened naturally, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think like on the app like you'd meet other people, right? But like with Orel, it kind of like we kind of instantly clicked, so we just like kept seeing each other after that as well. So yeah. And also I think both of us being from the US as well, like we had more to talk about,
Mm.
like relate on, because University of Sydney is huge, so there was people from like she was saying like everywhere. So it was kind of easier with Orel to like connect.
Yeah. And is there anything that sort of helped strengthen your bond or your friendship while you were abroad?
One of the big things was that we went on a big trip together with four other people as well. We went for 10 days to New Zealand. So that we definitely got much closer on that trip. Like we were pretty close before, but I think just traveling, especially because it was international as well, like from Australia, just brought us a lot closer. And like we were in hostels with like shared dorms and we were together literally 24/7.
Yeah.
So, I think it kind of forces you to like get to know someone and like you just learn about somebody when you're traveling with them and experiencing new things together, I think.
Yeah, it was the New Zealand trip was 10 days, so it was
Wow.
a lot, yeah. Um yeah, exactly. Like when you're traveling and you're spending so much time with someone, you just get to know them better and like it became like easier after that in Sydney as well because we just kind of like felt more familiar and like crossed like those barriers between us. And also like Orel's and me are very open-minded, and so I
Mhm.
connected with her on that too, because just like I knew that if I wanted to try a new experience, like Orel would also want to do that. So it's just very easy, like, to travel with her and like do things with her.
Yeah, and I think we also learned that like we have really similar travel styles, which
Mm,
Yeah.
I think if kind of the basis of the friendship when you're abroad is like you're going on trips, you're like exploring things like that can, even though it seems really irrelevant like now, when you're abroad, I think it is really important to like travel with people who you are compatible with when you're traveling. And so it's just more natural that you would like stay friends with those people. And so I think that really helped as well. And like just, there's compromise, like you always have to compromise when you're traveling.
yeah.
And there's problems that come up. Like there's just all these, you know, challenges, both good and bad, that can come up that it kind of forces you to like strengthen your bond. And um, I mean, Vanya and I were definitely in situations that I've never been in with any of my home friends just because of the nature of like traveling and like
Exactly.
we shared like so many memories just from experiencing new things together. So
Yeah, I agree with everything she said.
So reflecting back on your trip, so we know now that you guys had obviously made some really strong, close friendships while you were abroad. But before you went, were you nervous or anxious about meeting new people, about making friends? Did you know anyone from your school or program that we were going abroad with before you went? Or
So there was a send-off program at UFR, and so I knew of people that were going,
Mhm.
but like once I was in Sydney itself, it was kind of like I was by myself because there's nothing, no events or programs that were bringing us all together.
Mm,
Um, and so yeah, I was a little nervous, like not knowing anyone going in and like obviously scared, like I wasn't gonna meet people that I vibe with and all of that. But also mostly excited because it was a change of scene from Rochester and I felt like ready to sort of like experience a new place and like, I don't know, start a new life that I hadn't before. So it was a very exciting process too.
yeah, for me it was really exciting and also like obviously really nerve-wracking because I I go to a really small school. There's 2,000 total students at my school. There was no one else studying abroad in Australia or anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. So
wow.
it was really scary, like not initially, like obviously not knowing anyone. And nobody in my like circle, like my friends or family, had even been to Australia. So I wasn't
Mhm.
able to gauge like what's the culture like what should I expect? Like I remember packing and being like, I have no idea what to bring because every like every like country kind of has like different standards for like dressing up, dressing down.
Yeah.
So I just like packed way too much, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the nerves for me went away like probably within the first month, but definitely the first couple of weeks were really hard of like figuring out my routine and like the
Mhm.
time change because it is a 14-hour time change, which is really difficult. I think it forces you to get out of your comfort zone with like wanting to like meet new people, but at the same time, like having to adjust to the place because those are two
Yeah.
separate things, I think.
Yeah.
And then also being alone, I think you really have to learn to be okay and to love being alone when you're
Yeah.
studying abroad, especially somewhere so far away where like it's just not realistic to talk to people from home that
Right.
often.
Well, I was just gonna say what made Australia really different as well, maybe from other abroad programs, is that it was that far. Because
Yeah.
it's like the time difference really, like Orelle said, it makes it so hard to keep in touch with your friends here and like your family. And so it makes you feel like you're more alone. So yeah, that did definitely make it like hard.
Yeah. Did this sort of bring about any homesickness for either of you? And how did you sort of like get past that homesickness? Or if you did it help to have each other abroad or other friends there to sort of help you?
For me, like I grew up going to sleepaway camp and
Oh.
I didn't have like technology or like anything like that. And it was like 2 months every summer as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to like not being in contact with my family as much. I think for me it was like when things, if like there were challenging things happening at home, like my mom had a scary medical situation while I was away, and it was really difficult to like have to kind of manage that emotionally while like I was so far away. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's just all about like being really intentional about you want time to like talk to your family and friends, but you don't want it to be all consuming, and that is a
Mm.
difficult balance. Um, but I think in terms of homesickness, like I think it would be weird for someone to go that far away and not feel homesick. So obviously I did
Yeah.
feel homesick. There were times, ironically, when I would be in a really beautiful place and feel really homesick because I was like
Yeah.
I couldn't like share it with like people who like other people who I love in my life, obviously. And I think that's where having like the like such a amazing friend like comes into play of like we have so many memories together and like that's really special. And so I don't really care that like other people from home weren't there. Like,
Yeah.
I would say for me, like me and my family, like we obviously like talk, like even when I'm at college, like it's not like a big thing to like talk every day. And so
Mhm.
like Orelle was saying, like it's important to have that balance where like you're not completely consumed, like staying in touch with people that you're not as much in the present. And so that was kind of like good for me because I didn't feel that much pressure that I need to keep like talking to my family and updating them on everything. So it's kind of like I felt more in the present there, which I'm happy because I want to make the most of it, because only one semester.
Yeah, of course. And so obviously you two go to different schools in different states. So now that you're back in the US, can you reflect on sort of your friendship together? Has it changed since being back at school here?
I think like we've done a really good job of staying in touch. Like we FaceTime a lot, we text a lot. Um, like we're in pretty frequent communication,
Hmm.
and we've also seen each other a couple times since leaving abroad. And kind of like each time we always know like the next time we're gonna see each other, which I
Yeah.
think is really important. So it's
Hmm.
not like, oh, I don't know when I'm gonna see her next. Like I know I'm gonna see her soon. And yeah, I think like that's where like technology, like using it to our advantage and like FaceTime and whatnot, it's like not that hard to like stay in touch nowadays, which I think is great. And like it's like I feel like our lives are obviously like back to like normal, like how they were before abroad, but like it's almost like weird to think that like I didn't, well, no, a year ago I did know Vanya, but like 13 months ago I didn't know Vanya. That's like it's like crazy how like in
Yeah.
such a short amount of time you can build like you can literally become best friends with someone. Like I think it's really special and just awesome.
I think it's also like less about the time, but more like the experiences that we were having. Because of the amount of things we experienced together, like difficult things and like, obviously very memorable things, it kind of strengthened things. But also like with Orel, it's kind of like not difficult again because I don't feel like we don't have that stressful like pressure where like we need to keep updating each other because we both know we're busy. We're at
Hmm.
college, like we have things to do. But when we talk, it always feels the same. It's not like, it didn't feel like any time sort of passed. So that makes it easier. Um, and literally, like the summer that we came back, I saw her in New York City for a couple of days. We went on a Puerto Rico trip in like winter break. So we keep seeing each other. And that kind of like keeps things going.
Yeah. You guys mentioned earlier that you sort of have similar travel styles. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what makes you compatible in that sense?
I think like we both really like to be spontaneous, but also we like to do a lot of things when we travel, and like we have a good balance of like seeing things and like but also being in the moment and like not
Mhm.
trying to stick to like a really rigid itinerary, because I think that it's easy for friendships to like fall apart when you're traveling if you're
Yeah.
not compatible in that way. And so I think that one of the reasons we got close really fast too is because we went on this 10-day New Zealand trip. And in another situation, like we could have gone with other people who maybe we wouldn't have been like compatible traveling with, and that could have made it really difficult. So I think just like you learn, like travel, like you learn so much about yourself and like that, like what you like just who you are, I think in a really unique way, like your identity, and having someone else to like be there too, like it just brings you closer.
So another thing is like staying at hostels. Like I haven't really like when I was in Sydney and traveling to New Zealand, that was actually my first time or like second time like having that experience.
Mhm.
And I feel like not everyone is able to do that. But with Orel, like it's like we both have that experience, like not caring that much about the place we stay, but more like the experiences we're having. And I think we're both very good at adjusting to new situations because we've had those experiences. So yeah, I don't have a lot of, friends that like are able to stay in those situations and like still enjoy and everything.
Yeah. You guys both mentioned too, like being spontaneous, being adaptable when you travel and trying new things, new foods, new experiences. Would you say that being abroad and studying abroad sort of like gave you more opportunity to be more spontaneous and try new things, or are you always sort of have that vibe at school here in the US?
I would say the environment in school, like at least at Rochester, is very different. So it's like harder to be as spontaneous. Like when you're traveling and like studying abroad, you have like a different mindset and like you just have more opportunities to explore things and like, I don't know, like build yourself in a different way or like, yeah. So I would say it was very different, like traveling. Like I was able to be spontaneous. It's like when you're more like stressed and like busy with work and like studying, it's harder to be spontaneous. So
Mhm.
being abroad definitely, like the environment helped like bring that side out.
Yeah, I think for me too, like at school, like I'm in a very small bubble here, and like
Mm.
it's easy to kind of get really caught up in your routine. And I feel like at school, I'm like not a spontaneous person, and I hadn't thought of myself as being spontaneous, honestly, until I went abroad. And I just was like, I just want to make the most out of it because in my head, I didn't think I'd ever go back to Australia. I mean, I still don't know when or if I'm going to go back, because it's so far.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I have to make the most because I don't want to have regrets. So I think that that also put me in a situation where I like had to be spontaneous in order to have the experience as memorable as like I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of off of that note, because that is great advice for students who are going abroad, do you have any advice for prospective abroad students about friendship specifically while going abroad?
I think two things that are kind of like opposites but the same is put yourself out there, and if you're an introvert or like you think you don't necessarily want to make friends when you're abroad because it's so short, I would really challenge you to have a different mindset about it. At the same time, if you're more extroverted and you are always around people, this is also a really good opportunity to learn how to be independent and like liking and enjoying being alone. And you need both, I think, in order to have a good abroad experience, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And also adding on, like, just stay open-minded because that really helps, like, with friendships and experiences in general. Because often, like, maybe the first few people you meet won't feel like, oh, like, this is what I want to sort of like settle for. Like, just be open and like keep meeting people. Don't feel like you need to settle for the first few people you meet. Like,
Mm.
be okay with being alone for a bit if that's needed.
Great. Is there anything you two would like to add before we say our final like thank yous and goodbyes?
I would say definitely go abroad if you're able to because it's so memorable. Like you're not gonna forget it and it really changes you. Like it for sure you don't always account for how difficult it can be,
Mm.
but like you grow through that difficulty. So yeah, just definitely if you're able to just go and experience that.
Yeah, I tell everyone at Kenyon, like, go abroad. Like, best decision, I think, arguably of my life. Like, and I think actually going specifically somewhere so far away, if I had gone abroad to Kenyon has a partnership with like programs in Copenhagen and Stockholm, and I was really wanting to do that because I had friends who were doing it and it was really comfortable. So along with that, like one of my biggest pieces of advice is to go abroad to somewhere where you don't know anyone because you wouldn't be able to like learn how to love being alone and like how uncomfortable it is to have to meet all these new people if you just are with your same group of friends from college in another place.
Exactly. I would say like it could be nice if you go with a close friend of yours because like you're traveling together and it's like a sort of trip away from where you usually are. But I feel like then at a point you might be relying too much on them and you're not as open to everything else around you
Mhm.
that you could have been if you were completely by yourself.
Yeah, well, that is all fantastic advice. Thank you both so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you for listening to our last guest episode of the season, and thank you to Vanya and Orelle for coming on the podcast. Now, I'm going to hand over the mic to Emma, another study abroad ambassador, to share a travel tip she learned while abroad in Japan. As always, keep sharing your global story.
My second tip is to make sure you apply for your visa quite early on, because if you have to send your passport in the mail, it may take a while for it to return to you.
Hi, listeners. We'd like to remind you that the opinions expressed by our guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Center for Education Abroad or the University of Rochester. Our podcast aims to foster dialogue, critical thinking, and exploration of various topics related to education abroad. We encourage listeners to consider multiple viewpoints, engage in respectful discourse, and form their own opinions. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our community.